Greetings, my friends. Please make certain that you are still subscribed to this channel because every day I'm hearing from other people that they have been unsubscribed without their knowledge by YouTube. And if you are not subscribed, please consider supporting this channel. We need you. Thank you. Greetings, my friends. I am Dictor Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, and this is the second part of my Mandalorian Season 1 review. Where we left off last time was Episode 3, so let's talk about Episode 4, surely the weakest of the bunch. There are a lot of little cinematic homages in The Mandalorian, it seems to me, and Chapter 4, The Sanctuary, is in itself something of an homage to the Magnificent Seven, which is itself an homage to Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, and since Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress was one of the inspirations for Star Wars in the first place, in this episode, Favreau brings us back full circle to our cinematic roots in a very satisfying way. Here, Mando meets ex-rebellion fighter Cara Dune, played by the effervescent and delightful Gina Carano, a woman who proves you can be feminine and kick-ass all at the same time. This is one of the weakest and most predictable of the episodes, but it is salvaged by Gina Carano, who is absolutely wonderful in the role. The plot is really basic. On the forest planet Sorgan, some poor villagers are being harassed and bullied by Klatooinian raiders. Mando and Cara Dune, thinking an obscure village on a small planet would be a perfect place to hide from their various enemies, accept the job of driving the raiders away in exchange for lodging in the village. Unfortunately, the job is bigger than they thought it was, because it turns out the raiders have an old Imperial AT-ST, which leads to a bit of unpleasantness. There is also a burgeoning romance with the hot young village widow that briefly tempts the Mandalorian, but ultimately the raiders are defeated, the AT-ST steps into a hole and gets blown up, and when a guild bounty hunter tracks the child down and almost succeeds in killing it, so he and Cara bid each other goodbye, and the Mandalorian departs with the child. In Chapter 5, The Gunslinger, the Mandalorian takes on damage in a dogfight with a pursuing bounty hunter, and so, wonder of wonders, he heads directly for Mos Eisley Spaceport on Tatooine for repairs. Small galaxy, ain't it? Nevertheless, despite this being a terrible choice from a world-building perspective that shrinks George Lucas's galaxy yet again, it is admittedly a lot of fun seeing Tatooine again, and naturally, while the ship is being repaired, the Mando heads to the cantina looking for a little freelance work to pass the time. Turned down flat by the droid at the bar, oh my, how the times have changed. The cantina's gotten very liberal when it comes to droids, which used to be macana non grata in that establishment. The Mando meets a young, dumb, and full of you-know-what bounty hunter named Toro Calican, who is tracking an elite mercenary and assassin named Fennec Shand. Calican is basically the Schofield kid from Unforgiven, a dumbass who thinks he has a chance against an elite assassin, which will get him plenty wampum and get him into the guild. So naturally, he wants to partner with the Mandalorian to do the actual work. He'll give the Mandalorian all the money from the job, he just wants the fame and credit, so what the hell? The Mandalorian agrees to work with the little dumbass. After some mishaps and a run-in with the Sand People, who are remarkably calm and open to business negotiations, which struck me as fairly odd, they capture Shand in the desert, but she destroys one of their speeder bikes, so the Mandalorian has to go get more transport. He rather stupidly leaves the kid alone with the assassin, and while he's gone, Shand convinces the kid that the Mandalorian is a more lucrative target. The kid, being a bit of a bastard, then kills Shand and tries to capture the Mandalorian, but sadly it doesn't go well for the kid because once again, the show is called The Mandalorian. Don't try to kill someone on their own show. Read the title, dipshit. It's not rocket science. Anyway, the Mandalorian takes the kid's money to pay for his repairs and leaves Tatooine. Overall, this is a pretty fun episode. It's great to see Tatooine again. There's lots of action. The assassin Shand is pretty good. And I guess I can buy that Mando would work with the idiot kid in exchange for the whole bounty. I mean, Mando gotta eat, right? But I was a little disturbed at how trusting Mando was of this obviously shady little shit. leaving him alone with the skilled assassin, doing things the kid's way even when it didn't make sense. I lost a wee bit of respect for Mando in this episode, I have to be honest, but then again, he regained that respect and more in the next 3 episodes, which were uniformly excellent. Buckle up, gang, here's where the fun begins. Chapter 6, The Prisoner, is a kick-ass heist movie, only the thing being stolen is a prisoner from a New Republic prisoner transport. At times feeling a bit like a PG-rated version of Reservoir Dogs, the Mandalorian takes a job from his former partner Ran Malk, involving 4 other bounty hunters, including Bill Burr as an ex-Imperial sniper Mayfield, Carnival preacher Clancy Brown as a Deveronian with super strength named Berg, a Twi'lek knife expert named Shan, who previously may have stuffed the Mandalorian, and a droid pilot named Q90, which really chaps the Mandalorian's hide since it's his ship they're using on the job. The objective? Rescue Xian's brother Quinn. These bounty hunters Mando teams up with are completely obnoxious assholes, and I would absolutely have aborted the plan and greased all of their asses the minute they started giving me shit, disrespecting my ship, and messing around with the child. I realized I would have screwed the job and made an enemy of Ran Malk, but in the end, it wouldn't have made any difference anyway, since turns out what I suspected all along was true. They were setting the Mandalorian up to be the fall guy on the job. This episode really kicks ass, people. Despite being a tad predictable given how obnoxious and shady everyone is, it's no surprise at all when they turn on Mando. It was loads of fun watching Mando take out a squad of droids solo, and his revenge against those who betrayed him, while less violent than I would have liked, remains ultimately appropriate. To this point in the series, this is the best episode, and this is where the premise really starts to take off and gel. The acting is generally pretty damn good, the action is sharp and riveting, the plot clean, characters well defined. In general, Chapter 6 is proof that the Mandalorian has finally arrived, that Favreau and Filoni know what they're doing, and Wonder of Wonders still has a pulse, thanks to these 2 guys. In the end, Mando pays back those bastards for betraying him, delivers the target to his old partner, collects the bounty, and then pays back his old partner in spades for selling him out. All in all, a top-notch episode that I thoroughly enjoyed. In Chapter 7, The Reckoning, the Mandalorian receives a message from Greef Karga, played to rather mediocre effect by Carl Weathers, the guild broker the Mandalorian screwed over back on Navarro in Chapter 2. Karga tells Mando that ex-Imperial troops hired by the client have taken over the city, so Karga wants to hire the Mandalorian to kill the client and free the town, using the child as bait. This will be a ticket back into the guild's good graces, and eliminating the client who wants the child will enable the Mandalorian and the child to live their lives in peace, at least theoretically. Naturally, I don't trust Karga in the slightest, and luckily neither does the Mandalorian. But what Karga says is true, and so killing the client is worth the risk. Mando taps Cara Dune and Kuiil to assist him in this mission, and in one of my favorite parts of the season, IG-11 returns to the show. Turns out Kuiil rebuilt and reprogrammed IG-11 to serve him, and now Kuiil tasks IG-11 to be a nurse droid and protect the child at all costs. So it turns out that yes, Karga was planning to betray them and get the child to the client, but turns out Karga gets injured by flying creatures around the campfire at night, and Baby Yoda uses the Force to heal him. At that point, he kills his own guys and confesses his original plan was to shoot the Mandalorian and take the child to the client. Together, they come up with a plan to get Mando into the client's compound and get him close enough to the client to kill him. And the plan is working nicely until, surprise, surprise, turns out a shitload of Imperial stormtroopers show up on the scene, kill the client, kill everyone except our guys, then lays siege to the base under the direction of Moff Gideon, played by Giancarlo Esposito, better known as Gus Fring on Breaking Bad. Meanwhile, trying to get the child back to the safety of the ship, Kuiil is gunned down by a pair of scout troopers and the child is captured. And this leads us straight into the best episode of the series, Chapter 8, Redemption. The very first scene in this episode is the two scout troopers stationed outside the city with the child in a bag, awaiting orders and getting bored. They talk amongst themselves, and finally, at long last, we hit on the perfect tone for The Mandalorian. It is in this scene between these two idiots that we remember why we love Star Wars. This scene is fun. It's actually funny. A pause from the relentless action, just letting a couple of guys take a moment. And what a moment it is. If The Mandalorian is going to be like this in Season 2, sign me up. Finally, we get a little bit of humor, a little bit of character as these guys bicker back and forth. One of them wanting to peek at the little green thing in the bag, the other saying leave it alone. And when IG-11 shows up and kicks both of their asses and takes the kid, it's just perfect. This is damn near a perfect episode, folks. It's got awesome action, humor, thrilling chases, mechanical mayhem, but most of all, it has heart. As our band of characters finally come together under extreme stress, and you finally get to feel like this is a show that's on track. This is a show that has hit its stride, and this is a series you want to return to. Notable scenes include The Mandalorian using his new jetpack to take on Moff Gideon in a TIE fighter, a really great sequence with a nice payoff, IG-11's rampage through a mass of stormtroopers on a speeder bike, and finally, a sacrifice at the end of the episode that saves everyone and perhaps teaches the Mandalorian that his prejudices are unfounded. That's the really nice part of this season ender. The Mandalorian actually grows some as a human being, which is rare in a show like this. It's an emotionally powerful scene that harkens back as an homage to Terminator 2. We also learn the consequence of the Mandalorians emerging from hiding to save one of their own in Chapter 2, and we see a little Mandalorian girl power to boot. All in all, this episode ties everything together nicely, hints at where Season 2 is going, and makes this Overlord want to see more. Other notable events in the episode include seeing Moff Gideon wield a darksaber, watching the Mandalorian remove his helmet in front of IG-11 in order to save his life, watching the ever-wonderful Gina Carano kick more ass, and watching Darth Gus Fring be his usual menacing self. All in all, a worthy ending to a worthy first season. Turns out, thanks to Favreau and Filoni, Star Wars isn't entirely dead. It was just pining for the fjords. But only time will tell if Disney Star Wars can right the ship, get people back in charge who truly love and understand Star Wars, and if Star Wars is only standing up because it was nailed to the perch. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha